Big win, big relief for the Addicks. We've got a special guest. It's going to be a good one. Good evening, everybody. Welcome from the Value Flow podcast. My name is Callum. I've almost forgot the name of my own podcast for a second there. I hope everyone is doing well. Hello, Stuart. Hello, Robert. Hello, Sam in the comments. I'm going to bring on a special guest. Hello, Paul, my friend from the Chronicles, as everybody knows. There is no Chronicles.
Don't know about special. You're far too kind. About the special preview. You've done that straight away. I think the audience will say, Callum. But thanks for having me on. Great to be on.
There's no Chronicles tonight, so we thought we'd come on and have a bit of a chat. I was going to do a separate Norwich preview, but basically everybody's busy on the Norwich end, so I was like, you know what, we'll come on, we'll have a chat about the Oxford game, we'll have a bit of a chat about the year so far. So we'll make a couple of minutes on the women, I think, as well, after their fantastic year, and then we'll have a quick look ahead to the Norwich game, if that's all right with you, Paul. We haven't planned this at all, so prepare yourselves. Obviously, we'll have a chat with you all in the comments as well. But firstly, how you doing? Having a good weekend?
Yeah, no, great. Obviously, great to see you and the guys yesterday. Good win, long-awaited win. So hopefully, we can push on over the Christmas period and get points at Norwich and at Pompey, and on we go into the new year. So yeah, no, good to get 3 points.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend for the club, hasn't it? And Bick scoring again, because that's what he does at that level. Us winning. Palace got thumped on Saturday night. Millwall lost as well, because they always lose at Ewood Park. And the women finishing an unbeaten league year. In fact, the only team they've lost to this year have been two WSL sides, West Ham and Chelsea. So not a bad weekend. Not a bad 2025. Let's have a chat about Oxford, and that's why a lot of people are sort of here. So we've got Stuart saying few, huge win in an 8-point gap with a game in hand. Stuart, don't forget the game in hand. Robert saying good evening, Callum. Vital win and a clean sheet. Terrific goal from Kelman. Expect Fuller was disappointed to not even be in the squad. We'll come there. I'm a little less worried about Fuller starting games. We've got Sam saying hi, Callum. Hope all is okay. All is good. All is good. Right, shall we sort of start with Oxford reflections? I'll just start with a sort of a really quick one, which is I feel slightly smug because tactically I think got that one pretty spot on. I think so I'm feeling smug for about 20.
No, I used to be smug actually, Callum, but yeah, no, you got it right. You were right there. Fair play.
Yeah. Stuart, Sam, we've got an echo. Just double check. Does anybody else have an echo? Let me know if you do. Just so we can solve any sort of audio issues. No, I mean, I think for me the main thing obviously was seeing Charlie Callum back in the squad. I don't think anyone was dreadful yesterday. Of obviously sort of my view on Tanto missing his 4th straight 1-on-1 maybe was a little strong, but even I don't think Tanto, other than that moment, was particularly poor. I think that the centre backs dealt with a team that basically has a League One level front line, the way that they dealt with every other team they played in League One, with the League One standard front line, not named Rotherham. So, I thought that we sort of did what we were supposed to do. Robert saying no echo, loud and clear, Stuart, so it is probably your YouTube. I think that the midfield was good. I thought Coventry was really, really good in there. Just sat nice little pocket. Controlled what he needed to control. I thought Corey Anderson was fantastic again, actually. It's the 3rd time I've seen him now this year, and I think all 3 times I've seen him, I think he's been excellent. And that's against different levels of opposition. Thought Carey, unlucky not to score, maybe should have scored. I'm not going to get on his back, am I? All things considering with the start of the season that he's had. But I thought he was good. Obviously should have had an assist. Tanto finishes that. And then Miles up front, who I thought was excellent, 76%
Yeah.
aerial duel win rate yesterday, which is a mad stat. And also that fantastic image, which if you haven't seen it, of him flicking the ball, keeping it in above his own head, doing a sort of reverse bicycle kick is great. And then we ended it with Nathan Jones kissing the badge, sending a blow kiss out to everybody, and looking like the happiest man alive, which is great to see. Probably just as well Brannigan didn't play for Oxford. That is true. As soon as I sort of saw that, my confidence grew. There wasn't really a moment. I don't know how you felt, Paul, in terms of that first 10 minutes. Other than that first 10 minutes, where I was particularly worried about Oxford's pressure, maybe a little bit at the start of the second half. And then the 9 minutes felt completely interminable at the end, as it always does in a 1-0, which actually ended up being 11, wasn't it? We ended up playing 101 minutes. I don't know what you thought. Were you did you have any sort of worries other maybe than that first little bit of the game?
Yeah, no, I mean, going back to Brannigan, as the comment said, we exchanged texts, didn't we, when I looked at FOTMOB and saw he was out till the new year. Really a bit of a sigh of relief, because he does make them tick. I know you talked about De Keersmaker, and he did play well, I think, but to be honest with you, Callum, I didn't think that we were going to have a difficult afternoon, with all due respect to any Oxford fans watching. I think in the same way that we can't get too down about those 5 consecutive defeats, 4 of which were against teams or that are going to be in the shake-up. Sorry, cliche alert already. At the end of the season, by the same token, if we're playing the likes of Oxford and Pompey, they are the teams that I'm not saying anything original here, obviously, but they're the sort of teams we need to beat, basically. And there was obviously going to be a drop-off in quality compared to what we've had in previous weeks, and I think you saw that. I thought their defence was pretty well marshalled, but they didn't really create much that I could see. They were pretty workmanlike, but they missed a spark that Brannigan provides, and I felt that it was a tidy win. Even when the 9 minutes went up, I thought, well, I wasn't overly worried. Obviously, they had the free kick, which they didn't do anything with, which kind of summed up their day. So I think it was a good 3 points. I think if we'd only got a point, I would have been extremely disappointed and actually be looking at the sort of relegation zone, I think. But having, as you say, got the 3 points, we're now edging away. And I think the important thing for us now is to build on it. But I think in terms of individual performances, yeah, I thought Karai was great. If I can just sort of dwell on Miles for a bit. I mean, Miles has been doing kind of Miles things this season pretty much. So the problem is that people haven't been sort of making use of his good work. And I think you saw, for example, yesterday, that people were actually picking up the balls that he was flicking on, which obviously made him look good and made them look good. So I think, people need to, you can't look at him in isolation. I think you have to look at him in terms of how he fits into the team dynamic. And I thought he, as you said, he did excellently. And I know that Nathan obviously was very, very complimentary about him afterwards, and saying, he was this far away from being a great striker. I think you think he's right. I think part of it is confidence for Miles. I think again he's one of these sort of forwards who thrives on confidence. And I think again, I don't want to harp on about it, and I know I've spoken to you about this many times before. He had a very, very serious hamstring injury, and that's got to be in the back of his mind, really. I think hopefully less so now. And I think hopefully he can sort of look forward, because I think, I don't think yesterday was any sort of statement performance. It just showed, what he's about. And, I've got no problems at all with him. I've got no, I'm sure he will be, as Nathan says, he will blossom into a really good, almost, dare I say, elite championship striker. But in terms of all the other, I think all over the pitch, I think we all, it was a competent performance. I mean, Lloyd was doing Lloyd things, and excellent as per usual. He was in the programme, and you might have seen there's a big feature on Lloyd, and he was talking about his younger days at Liverpool. And when you're spoiled at 15 or 16 by a team like Liverpool, you've obviously got something about you. But I think, he's had various stops in his career, hasn't he? But I think now he's found a home and he feels really comfortable. We're seeing the best of Lloyd Jones at the age of 30, and I'm sure he's going to go on to play many more years, hopefully with Charlton. But yeah, I think all in all it was a good standard. I don't want to go overboard, as I said, but I think now we're starting to get players back, and I think both Charlie and Nathan, in their post-match interviews with Louis, I think on the Substack or for the Charlton, the Charlton website, YouTube,
We
was saying
always
that
shout out Rich on here. Always shout out Rich on here.
absolutely right.
We've
I
got the
mean, I
5
think
months to do it.
exactly great value actually, and it's great to have the banter between him and Louis. I think excellent. It's all really good. But I think clearly there are players coming back now, and they're all going to probably come back in a bit of a tranche, aren't they? Really.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for Josh to come back. He may be maybe a bit longer, but I think by sort of mid-January, it looks as though we're probably going to almost be up to full complement, which is great. And then we'll see what we're like. We have suffered with injuries. There's not, people say, oh, well, every team has injuries. Again, as you said, we've brought in a number of players with great pedigree, but of course have an injury history. And of course, it's all smacked us in the face all at once, really, hasn't it? So some of this stuff was avoidable, but be that as it may, that's past us now. Hopefully, we can look forward, and we're actually getting players back, and we're looking again like the team that got to fifth in the. That wasn't a flash in the pan for us to get to fifth. Absolutely no way. We suffered, but sorry, I've rambled.
I think we can rectify just to sort of harp on a couple of points you made there before we go on. There's a couple of bits, and if we could, let's hold off on Rob Apter. I want to talk about him specifically in a little bit. Tyrese Campbell, Charlie Callum will come on to as well, because I think there's some good discussion to be had, and I want to focus on a couple of the points you've made. I mean, the Miles one is that he was third as of Saturday morning for strikers in the Championship in terms of aerial duels won. And quite often you see Nathan Jones having a bit of a rage if there's a header one or a battle in the middle of the park or whatever. And people think, oh, that's he's raging at Lebo not running. Oftentimes he's raging because we haven't won the second ball. It's not so much what the player's done. He does rage at Lebo, and he rages at everybody. There was a great moment with Kaminsky I'll talk about later, because it was absolutely hilarious in the first half. There's one of those things where the ball kind of, he quite often will have a moan because so no one's picked up that second ball. So he's saying actually he is doing the job he wants him to do. I'd like Lieben to crash the box a bit more than he does. And again, I think you're right. I think that's probably injury related. Maybe you don't feel as if you can sprint into the box. You're kind of watching your hamstring a little bit. But I feel as if as he kind of again comes back from what was a pretty awful injury. He's had it twice as well. So it's the sort of thing where it's like you just don't trust yourself, I think, necessarily. And then that's kind of where he needs to get to. I think that we can rectify some of the squad issues in January. I mean, the left wing back is the one obviously I've banged on about, but it's the one that Nathan Jones has banged on about as well, isn't it? Really, going in with one recognised left wing back into a season when you're playing 5 at the back was a bit of a silly move, I think. My Jamal Lewis point was probably a bit silly now because he's picked up a hamstring injury and actually won't be back to the end of January, playing for Preston. But yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing where I think with that, and I think I've said it on here before, I don't think they expected Thierry Small to actually go. I think they offered him a contract they thought was fair, and he'd probably accept, and he'd already made his mind up and wanted to go to Preston. So, and then they were sort of scarping around, and you find so many players, and you're trying to sort everything out, and I think they went, I'd rather have the extra forward and Fofana on deadline day and get Bree in. And the Fofana thing just didn't quite work out. So I think there was some planning that probably wasn't quite perfect. But yeah, I mean, I think that they can rectify it. We'll come on to it later a little bit. But for me, a left wing back, centre back, forward, I think are the 3 that you're probably looking at, and then you need to solve that right wing back situation. I think that will resolve itself naturally, because I think Southampton will just extend the loan with Bree and just say, look, take 100% of his wages off our plate. And he can have a signing on bonus and can sign a contract extension, because it's pretty obvious Bree wants to stay. So it's just about, so it's not worth the hoopla for Southampton, I don't think, especially if they're going to add players in as they try to build towards a playoff side. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's some good points there. There's a couple of things I want to look at, and I think the first thing is, as I say, I just have to talk about the Kaminsky things. There's 2 things that were great. There's not much to talk about. He had very little to do. He made 2 or 3 nice punches and had a couple of gathers. Had a pretty funny reaction to the guy taking the free kick at the end, where he did that kind of like, almost like Slender Man run up. He kind of goes inside, outside and whatever, and then completely missed it. And you just see Kaminsky, one shouts at his defender and just looks at him, just goes, really? just quite funny. But in the first half, he played a pretty dreadful ball to Rob Apter, let's be honest with ourselves. And it didn't matter in the end because there was a throw and Oxford committed a foul and it didn't matter. But Nathan Jones started screaming at him. I don't know if anybody else saw it, but sitting behind it, he kind of kept giving him a thumbs up. And it was really quite funny because instead of taking it as sort of his manager giving him an absolute ripping, which he was, and he deserved it. He absolutely deserved it. He can't give the ball away there. It was a very, very funny moment of how to kind of deal with someone who's losing their mind on the side. It was like someone that's definitely had. He's got the name of his 2 daughters on his glove, right? So someone that's definitely dealt with someone throwing a bit of a tantrum. So it's quite a funny moment. It caused a cucumber as always, Thomas, but it was just a pretty funny thing. And I liked at the end there's a very nice big embrace between him and Mannion. I thought that was really nice to see. Nice to see JRC and Nibs and all the rest of them sort of everyone very happy instead of sort of it being about them. And I guess it takes us pretty naturally onto Rob and some of the obviously I've been semi-critical, I think, of some of the behavior that I've seen at times. And, I also understand he's 21 years old, 22 years old, and, it's not going to be perfect and he's frustrated and he actually has the right to be frustrated. But I thought yesterday, because you were playing against a team that's a right-footed right winger and wasn't going to cut in, you could play him at left back. You played him at left back, and actually it was all right. My problem is that I think literally every other. I'm trying to think of a team in the Championship that doesn't have inverted wingers, because teams that maybe they play 3 at the back, but even then Preston have small on one side and a left foot and a right foot on the other. So it's kind of it's a bit of a strange thing where it's actually quite difficult to fit someone in who's so left-footed. But I thought yesterday, because the matchup suited him. And there wasn't a ton of pace. You didn't have to worry about Gillespie being outrun because Oxford don't have much pace. I don't really understand why De Keersmaker was playing central attacking midfielder and not out on the wing. I thought that was a bit strange, considering that we did have a weak spot out there. So I don't know why. Oxford did target that side. But kind of, as I said in the preview, right, they just didn't have the quality to really trouble you. And as I say, at the end of the first half, Rob Apter with a really excellent clearing header. It was really, really important. He got up there, got a good flick on that. And the ref, I think, blew the whistle literally. It came down the other end, the ref blew the whistle. So it's a really important header. But going forward, I think he put some excellent balls into the box. I think that Bree, clearly that groin isn't 100% because his crosses just haven't been the same. But I wonder. I know on the Chronicles we talk quite a lot about Apter because he's one of Emma's favourite players. But I'm sort of interested to kind of maybe have a conversation with you as sort of maybe 2 people that have been a little bit less on the because I think Steve's a big Rob fan as well. So I think we're both fans. I like the player. But I think probably you and I, when we've had conversations, have been a little bit more understanding of why things have worked out the way that they have, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. So what do you think of Rob's performance and also, I guess, his season so far?
No, I think he played well. But again, you touched on it. The quality of the opposition was quite a key factor. And if you'd have played in some of the other games, and obviously played against Hull, and he got subbed, didn't like it, threw a bit of a strop. I can understand. He started quite a few games at the beginning of the season, and suddenly he's out of the team. So young guy, obviously highly touted. League 2 Player of the Year a few years ago, and obviously a great prospect. So for him to be almost binned off that early, you can understand him being a bit fed up. But I think if you look at the teams we played and the quality, particularly those aforementioned 4 or 5 teams, or 4 in particular, we'll discount Wrexham obviously for his reasons. But we can't afford to mess about. Technical term. I think it would be exposing him. Whereas yesterday, I think it was quite a good game to sort of ease him into. But I mean, even then, going back a few games, going back to QPR away, I mean, he was playing, I think, on the right hand side then. But I distinctly remember a couple of times in the first half where Rob swept up at the back and he was giving balls back to breaking up attacks and giving the ball back to simple balls back to TK. So he's certainly got the ability, and I think his speed helps him a lot. He can get up and down. But I think I don't want to go negative on stature. Too many times you hear people say, "Oh, someone's too small." They haven't got a chance. He certainly has, but I think I'd certainly not want him. I mean, I do. We've talked again about the Paul Smith situation with under Bow back in the day, where Paul Smith was put at right back. He wasn't a right back. He was an attacker, and of course he scored against us, didn't he, earlier in the season? So I'm not saying that it's quite that sort of contrast with Rob. I think he's got some potential. I don't know if he went to the Wealdstone pre-season friendly, Callum, but all I remember in the second half when Rob came on was Amari getting on his case, continuing about getting into defensive positions and that sort of thing. So
I
he's
was
obviously
right next to that happening. I think I mentioned
you really,
on this podcast because I ended up in the corner with Connor Coventry's family talking about their family trip to
that's right.
Bulgaria. It was sort of very strange. Pre-season is a very strange time. But yeah, I remember Amari quite specifically shouting, "Get bleeping back here. Where the bleep are you going?" And it was one of those things where it's like, if you chat to Amari outside, he's like the nicest guy in the world. But he kind of a game face on. I think he was trying to say, if you don't come back, I'm going to be completely exposed here. And I think it's probably difficult to switch between Edwards and you've got Edwards at one time, you've got Apter at another time. And I think that was Nathan Jones trying it. And maybe that's why he's been hesitant to do it, as it didn't work. But I guess he probably looked at it the same way probably you and I did and went, this is probably the game this is probably the game where you can kind of get away with that. I've got some comments I might just bring up if that's all right, Paul, just before we move on to the subs, the impact. Actually, I want to talk about Corey Anderson first, and then we'll talk about the subs and the impact, because I think we should reflect on that a little bit. So we've got Stuart sorted out his audio issues. It was him having two tabs open at the same time. I've done exactly the same thing before.
At least
probably as well. Brannigan didn't play for Oxford. When they're on two different browsers, it can happen to anyone. Sam saying probably the best game for Leeburn with winning his headers. Hopefully Ramsey injury isn't too bad. I think Nathan said he had a bit of a tight calf. I'd assume with Burke's back for Friday, he'll get a break anyway.
Well, he got through a lot of work, didn't he, Kane? I mean, he played excellently.
And we'll talk about the kids as well in a moment, because we'll come on to that. But yeah, he walked off. It didn't seem like he was in massive amounts of pain. I think he just couldn't quite explode. And for a player like Ramsey, that's quite an important part of his game. Did question the 9 minutes, says Sam. It did feel interminable, and I think the reason was that Kaminsky actually, when he went down towards the end of the second half, at the end of the game, I think he actually was injured. I think he did take an absolute clattering. But that's why you got to come for those sorts of balls there, because even if you don't get there, the rest of them was always going to give you a foul. So, but I think he did take a pretty gnarly whack there. Another massive result for the Charlton women. We'll come to them. And then we've got Stuart with two things. One, strange stats at the bottom of the league in terms of successful passes. That is the most Nathan Jones stat I've ever read. Nathan Jones does not care at all about that particular stat. I can tell you that one for free. And this Stuart saying it's a good point, actually. I'm not a great fan of Apter. I think he's isolating out of the game for too long. I really like Stuart when he comments, actually, because I think he often takes he takes an opposite opinion, not to troll or whatever, but actually because I think he makes some really good points, Stuart. And I really appreciate your comments, actually, because they make me think. I think he's isolating out of the game for too long. And I think actually that's probably a fair comment. I think part of that, again, sometimes with the strikers, we say they're not doing anything or whatever it is, and it's because they're just not getting the ball. I think he's a player that looks better in a game when he has the ball, and the problem is because we don't have loads of successful passes. Just as your previous comment said, I don't think we always get it out to him. And I was a bit disappointed, actually, not in Apter specifically, because I don't think this is his fault. But if I've got Apter out there who can knock the ball, and I've got Brie on the other side who can knock the ball in, and I've got Gillespie on one side who can knock the ball in, and Connor can come up with a good cross every once in a while, right? Why Leeburn wasn't more inside the 6-yard box and sort of waiting for those sorts of crosses to come in, I don't think we necessarily we used Leeburn's head, I think, everywhere except for inside the box, which is a choice. But who am I to question Nathan Jones on that? And that may just be players not necessarily fulfilling his wishes. Really, really quick one. Let's just have a bit of because I want to spend a couple of minutes on Callum and TC, and we'll come to that. First on Croy, who I thought again was absolutely exceptional. And what it is, it's his weight of pass. Well, central midfielders, centre backs, strikers are often the three positions that take the longest for players to develop in, because midfield especially, because you've got to be able to see the whole game. And oftentimes with Croy, be dispossessed, or he play the wrong ball or whatever it was. And that to me wasn't actually that concerning, because I thought it's a 19-year-old kid, playing midfield against grown men, and he's not always seeing the right thing. And you learn that as the speed kind of comes up. But the thing that did worry me was his weight of pass, is that it was often too heavy. He'd hit it too hard. He'd hit it too far. He'd hit it too fast. I don't know if, and maybe he's seen it differently, but one of the things I've really noticed in these sort of 3 or 4 games is just how nice the weight of pass is from Croy at the moment. He's coming to collect the ball. He allows Coventry to almost go up a bit, which suits him. Comes, collects, turns, nice little turn, lovely little weighted ball out. And I think there was a couple of times where Apter was able to kind of get on the run because he'd received a nice ball from Croy. And also the Joe Rebo turn, I always love in the middle of the park. That brings back some nice memories. Did that a couple of times. Seems to be Ibrahim Fuller does it as well. It seems to be like a Charlton Academy move, that little spin. But it's one of those sort of things where I really I've been really, really impressed. The tackling was always there. The engine was always there. The ability to win a header actually was always there. Just that bit, it's that weight of pass, it's that technical bit that Nathan has talked about, and I think it's improving. And I can't imagine anything else other than either him and a trainer or him and a friend or whatever it was have gone to the training ground or a park or whatever it is and just gone, we're going to play multiple hours of the same ball. Keep playing that 6-yard out ball. It's not the most exciting drill in the world, but I think that's kind of settling in. I think you learn it in training, but I really do think that Croy is improving massively. And that could be a really big help because he's a proper box-to-box midfielder, and we desperately need a proper box-to-box midfielder if we want to progress. You look at the academy, you look at an Mbik maybe in a season or 2. I think he'll get the pre-season next year to try and prove himself if he keeps like this at League 2 level. I'd like him to actually get a League 1 loan, if I'm honest. But what you'll probably see is, what you may be able to see is that we need a forward, right? If the academy produces a forward and a midfielder, then you can kind of spend that money probably on a centre-back who's not Ramsey, probably on improving the fullbacks. And then ultimately, I'd imagine in a couple of seasons, once Kaminsky is sort of 34, 35, that you'll probably start to look at bringing in a number 1 for the next, extended period of time. Maybe that's Mannion. I don't think it is, but, you find out who that is. So I think that you can spend money in other places if these players develop. But as fans, we need to almost let them develop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, certainly talking about Croy, of course, he's hardly started this season. So, part of developing their team is getting to know your teammates. Where do they run? What are their inclinations and impulses and all the rest of it? And a lot of, obviously, so again, is a lot of about good passing. It's timing. Timing, where's your colleague going to run? Pass it in front of him, pass it to him, whatever. And I think there have been times where Croy has passed the ball forward and the forward's sort of been rocked on his heels, back on his heels, because he's afraid of going offside or whatever. So it's that sort of thing. It's just experience, I think, as you say. It's just time. He's still a young guy. As you say, the energy and the dynamism, the tackling, the spoiling were always there. He just let himself down a little bit with it because he's so dynamic. Just does things at 100 miles an hour. It can be difficult sometimes to sort of wait that sort of split second, be that sort of ice cold temperament and say, right, where am I going to go with this? And I think, as you say, he's really seems to have improved. I mean, I was a little concerned as to whether he could make the step up to the Championship. And, so far he seems to prove himself. But again, we need to be clear, we played Oxford yesterday. They didn't present much of a challenge, again, with respect.
It's only over 3 games as well, right? So it's a very small sample size.
It's small, and as every game goes by, providing he's picked, of course, the sample size will grow, and I'm sure his qualities will shine through, particularly offensively, as times go on. So I think it's probably quite good to try and bed him in with some of these, dare I say, lesser teams or whatever. And then when it comes to the tougher challenges, I mean, Coventry at home's not that far away, is it? So Norwich will be a real challenge, I think. They can't sort of get out of their own way, can they, in terms of winning games and all the rest of it? But still, going to Carrow Road on Boxing Day, it's going to be a quite hostile atmosphere. So, but that's it's another game that will challenge him. That won't be too much of a step up, I don't think. So again, I think it's just a gradual, isn't it, with him? It's great to see him there. He's had that international experience as well, and he's just growing and growing. He's still a really young guy. But he's a sponge. He likes to learn. You know why Nathan loves him and TC, because they'll just soak up whatever he and the coaches sort of tell Curtis and whatever. So
they also bleed Charlton. I think that's kind of the thing with Miles. I think Miles has always sort of seen it as and not in a bad way. He came through a Premier League academy, right? He's always seen himself with this sort of unicorn gifts and all the rest of it as being able to play at that level. right? And so it's always kind of been, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because actually I do understand it. This is a stepping stone for him. As sign a he signed a 3-year contract, not a 4 or 5, right? For him, it's I prove myself, you get money, and I go, right? And I go on to sort of fulfill that. I think with Croy, it's very different. I know he turned down Premier League clubs when he was in the academy. The kid breeds. The kid bleeds Charlton. Tyrese Campbell is, all the time talks about in interviews when he's asked, what do you want to be doing? He's like, scoring goals for Charlton, right? Like these kids, those two are childhood Charlton fans, and that's kind of, I think, what you're getting coming through. If you ever get a chance to chat, he's a very nice lad. With Micah and Bick, same thing, right? I want to play for Charlton. Daniel Connor, I want to play for Charlton, right? Like, Go, who came on, or was it Goff? Scow, isn't it? I want to play for Charlton, just like a Tabua. I want to play for Charlton, right? It's that sort of thing I think you're getting through now, and I think that's probably the change. Is players really wanting to play here, and I think that a player like Croy represents so much of what can be good, but also I think because he's playing in that position, in that midfield spot, where it takes you a lot longer to learn, right? He's the sort of player that you have to persevere with, and Nathan Jones made that very clear. He's not going anywhere. Like, I'm going to keep him around because I want him around, right? Rather than, I think with other players, it was about development and all the rest of it. For him, he's saying, look, he's going to develop by staying here and learning from players around him, right? And that's kind of, I think, the difference, if that makes sense.
And I think also you need to think about these guys have been a chance since the age of 8 or 9, some of them. And they've come through each age group. And we know how difficult it is to actually go from academy to professional. What is it, 0.1% or whatever it is, 0.1%. So for these guys to go through all the age groups. Yeah, well, exactly. There is that, of course. But the fact that they've actually gone through the age groups and now the first team, obviously, I'm sure Nathan, really respects the resilience of that. The sort of the challenges they've no doubt had to have got surmounted in those, 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it is for each of them. So I think, as I say, there is that learning that conversely, as I say, they've learned so much in the academy. Steve Avery's done, Steve Avery things. They feel, loved and wanted. And there is another cliche. Well, absolutely right. At least one.
Build the man a statue, name the West Stand after him. I don't care. Do something. That man, exactly, he would absolutely hate it, Steve, by the way. He would absolutely hate it.
No, he would. He's one of the most modest guys you get ever
met. Name the Academy building, the Stephen Avery building or something, right? Like, that man deserves, so much in terms of, he basically kept this club afloat for almost 10 years, almost by himself. I've told the story in here before about him scouting Ezra Contra on the fields at Hackney Marshes, right? Like this guy is, in fact, Tom Pell went from Tottenham, and Jim Rodwell in that interview was sort of like, "Well, Steve's here," so he was like, "I'll just go back to working full time for 3 months." Like,
absolutely, yeah.
He's like, "My wife will hate it, but it doesn't matter."
Well, I don't know. He's probably under her feet. She probably thinks, yeah, result. But yeah, but again, we talk about the pathway. It's cliche, isn't it? But this pathway that and it's there. It's clear. So every person that makes a debut for the first team from the academy, they join the sort of the litany of sort of the roll of honour of all the others, like Esri and Joe Gomez and all the others that have come through, and it's continuing. Oh, absolutely, of course. How could I? Yeah, so absolutely. So we're talking. It's going back years that these guys have graduated to the first team, so people can see that. I mean, I know we've got a few that are getting poached every so often, aren't they? But the majority are staying and as I say, they can see that they work hard. There's a better than even chance that they'll get through to the first team, and we've got this incredible crop of 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 youngsters coming through, and it's just incredible, really. And yeah, absolutely. And they talk about the Sparrows Lab, and that's a super case, well earned, basically, because it's just I don't know what's in the water. I don't know what Steve Avery's got, what secret sauce he's got, but it's something incredible, as you say. It needs at least one statue. Maybe rename Charlton Lido after him or something, all sorts of things. But no, it is. So as I say, it's just wonderful to see, and Croy will just go from strength to strength, and it's really great to see. As I say, I do feel that because they've come through the academy, of course they shouldn't be immune to criticism. No player should be, but I still think that they deserve. People deserve to get behind them. Booing, I'm digressing slightly, Callum, obviously just indulge me, but, booing your own player to me is verboten. You shouldn't be doing that at all.
No, I don't do it in my own team.
And it's absolutely not
I didn't do it
acceptable.
at Southampton, against Southampton.
No,
I don't do it. I didn't boo after Crawley.
I
Right?
didn't
For
even
me,
boo Charlie Kirk. I know a lot of people did, but I didn't even boo Charlie. I wanted him to actually succeed, and sadly he didn't for various reasons. But as I say, it's it's that sort of thing. You need to you need to remember these guys are busting their backsides to do. But I mean, again, I'm going for a slight tangent.
I don't know if Charlie Kirk was busting his backside, if I'm honest.
No, true. There is that. Sorry. Yeah, let's move on from that.
That's a name I thought we'd all forget existed, if I'm honest.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
for the betterment of all of us. Yeah.
Another rabbit hole. Sorry, carry on.
No, I mean, I think the it really does bring us on to, and we will, to that booing point. I think takes us to the two players, the three players involved in the goal. Connor Coventry doesn't get booed, right? But there are a lot of people that questioned him when he came in, right? I didn't. I was a big fan. Is in the obviously, as I said many times, I live just down the road from London Stadium. I know a few people at West Ham. My friend who was married in India when I was away, he's a lifelong West Ham fan. His dad's a lifelong West Ham fan, season ticket holder. West Ham going down. Yeah, at the moment, yeah. But I have a huge amount of respect for West Ham. I don't go there very often because that stadium is god awful. But I have I've been to Upton Park. All the rest of it.
Great stadium.
But we're walking through. It's like the old East End, and as an East Ender, it's it's quite a fascinating thing. But I've got one of the pie shops that people still use on my road. Walking down to the ground. So it's one of those sorts of things. But I think Coventry was questioned, and in many ways fair enough, because the way that Dobson was treated was poor, and people can this is his own sort of story, and I've made my point on that very clear. Tyrese getting what I can only call some of the criticism, I think, on outputs and different things is totally fair. I think some of the ways that it goes, even I posted a thing yesterday or this morning when Charlton put up a thing of the goal, because it's a lovely right-footed little shift that he does. And that's a difficult skill to get that through two players, right? The wait for it to be Callum can turn. First thing I saw, my 7-year-old does that on a pitch every Sunday. It's like, no, your 7-year-old doesn't. Right, like stop it. Right, like he's done a good thing. Give him the credit, right? Instead of this thing of constantly trying to find the negative. Did he celebrate enough against Birmingham? Honestly, I really couldn't care less. Right, the kid is shy as anything, right? And also a lot of people, and not everybody, but a lot of people give him pelters, right? And oftentimes it's deserved, right? If you get beaten on a 50-50 ball or whatever it is, but there was a level to me which I think has made me a little bit uncomfortable. I've said it before. Some of the stuff I heard at QPR in the away end, I thought was really close to crossing some lines. The person I was next to was saying, actually, I felt it was getting a little bit close as well.
Well, I had a bloke at Hull. I probably told you this. The guy sitting behind me at Hull was giving TC pelters literally the whole game. I had another issue with him. He asked me to sit down. He just decided to stand up whenever he wanted. But that's another story. It was mainly what he was. It was really vitriolic, and it wasn't acceptable.
It's the sort of thing where you just I think that you can be critical, but you can be critical in a way that's fair. Be constructive. I think it sometimes ends up being a bit scapegoaty, and you can say a player's not been good enough, and I want to see somebody else playing there, and that's absolutely fine. But that thing this morning really sort of crystallized what my thoughts were, which is he's not. And I said this about Kelman. I made a post where I sort of said, look, actually with Kelman, I think I got it slightly wrong as well. I still stand by his off the ball runs weren't quite right. And now we found out he had a tendon injury, and that's probably affected him. And he's learning the championship.
And again, it's as we said, it's new teammates, complete new structure. He needs to get used to it. He needs to get used to the predilections of his teammates.
And I always try to give Callum credit for the things that he was doing well as well. But I think that we badly missed his press. And if you look at that goal yesterday, take, touch, turn, smack, bottom corner, keeper's nowhere near it. Lovely, right? It's just one of those goals. But I think it's almost Kelman learning. If I shoot the way I shot in League One, yes, the keepers in this level are significantly better, right? It's not even close. I was watching the EFL highlight show yesterday, and some of the goals that are letting in League One are just truly dreadful. Right?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
But it's one of those things where it's like, but Kelman's finishes weren't sort of scruffy whatevers. The guy's got an absolute laser of a shot on him, right? He's got a decent header on him as well. Like, it's one of those things like, look at those two goals. One perfectly chips Vizru under the side of the bar, lovely finish. Second one, bottom corner, keeper nowhere near it, lovely. Right, and we haven't had a player outside Matty Godden, I think, willing to take that shot, and that's kind of, I think. I think that it's one of those things where it's like massive credit to Charlie Callum for doing that. Massive credit to TC for a lovely little ball. Massive credit to Connor Coventry for becoming basically undroppable at this point. And I think it's the reason I want to kind of leave them towards the end, and we'll get to the youngsters that came on, because I think they deserve their own thing for the last couple of weeks. But I think it shows resilience, and I think it's an important conversation that we have sometimes on these things, is sort of going, hey, you might think someone should be a bench player or whatever it is, but when a player's actually out there, what does booing, what does saying you're crap, and it won't be using the word crap, put it that way, what does that achieve? Is I guess sometimes what I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, it's we said before, it's every single game is a learning experience at this level. Most of those players have not played at this level. It's a journey into the unknown. It's become less unknown, obviously, as time's gone on. They've had some salutary lessons to learn against, the likes of Cov and Borough. But that's all going to be, as long as you can learn from that, don't repeat the same mistakes. But again, injuries have played a massive part, I think. It doesn't excuse everything. But I think it's just, they're learning every single time they go on. It was great to see Keenan Goff go on, even if it was only for a few minutes, because it was still potentially quite tense for him. And I think he did well. He was being sort of marshalled through by Lloyd and others, but even Maka particularly. But he got in a couple of good headers, and it's all, and that's all one wonderful experience for him, to make his sort of first team debut or whatever. So yeah, it's all good. It's just
if you take Kaminsky and Bree out of that side that played away at we played, I know you had Bell for 20 minutes, but played away at Stoke, or I guess Berry at Stoke as well. But you take those three players out and you take JRC off that bench, and that team is basically entirely a team that played last year in League One, right? And has barely any championship experience at all, right? Those players that have gotten injured, your Burke's got loads of appearances in the championship despite his injury history. Bell's got tons of championship experience. It's the sort of thing where it's like, sometimes I think if you're the goalkeeper back there, you're Bree at right back or whatever it is, like you are trying to marshal through players that, Lloyd Jones has championship talent. I don't think we can deny that, but he hasn't played at the level very much, right? Mac has never really played at this level because Plymouth, for some reason, went he's not good enough, which was bizarre. But it's the sort of thing where it's like, Ramsey's not really played at this level. He's actually played the level above a little bit, but not a huge amount, right? Miles has never played this level. TC's never played this level. Coventry, 10, 15 games on loan, right? When he was at Peterborough, it was in this level. It was MK Dons who were this level. I think it might have been Peterborough, right? And I think it was a bad Peterborough side as well. So it's the sort of thing where it's like, I just think that amazingly, when you get the players back who have played at this level, everything looks cleaner because they know where to be and they sort of know what to do.
Yeah.
But let's just really quickly mention three players, and people are doing it now in the chat here. We've got Gal didn't like out of place, but he's enjoying working alongside Lloydie. Matt, I have a huge amount of credit for Ibby Fuller, who played left wing back away at Birmingham. You've got Josh Lakatabua and Goh, who both made basically their first team. I know Lakatabua played in a cup game, but these guys are basically playing their first minutes of the first team in games where if you concede a goal, you've lost at Birmingham at 6 in a row. You concede a goal yesterday, you haven't won in 7. And they came on, and I thought Goff did a really great thing of actually kind of let Lloyd win stuff for him. He didn't try to do too much, right? I thought Lakatabua looked really good at Birmingham, right? Just sort of sitting in there. He's got some pace on him, right? And then you've just got that, I think, I think that they were sort of brought into baptisms of fire. And all three of them, I think, were at least, functional. Right?
Well, they looked assured, I think, in most cases. They looked assured. I think, sometimes when you look at a young player coming in, does he look like he's going to shit the bed? Because, I think we've all seen.
Especially, right?
Exactly, that's right. Last line of defence. And it's just, and as I say, you sort of look to what's their demeanour? How do they feel? How do they look? What's the cut of their jib, to use the old phrase? I'm old, I use those old phrases. But you know what I mean? It's just, do they look to the manner born? How do they, are they nervous? It's just, I always remember, sorry, just to digress slightly, talking about West Ham. I remember when Glenn Johnson made his debut for West Ham as an 18-year-old. Watched, I think,
Yeah,
Live on
fullback.
Sky. Live on Sky.
Yeah.
And I just saw this kid. Well, he was a big lad anyway. He didn't look like a kid,
Yeah.
but his debut, he looked so self-assured. Can't remember if it was against Liverpool or who, but he just played really well, and he obviously went on to have a great career. And it's that, I'm not saying that that Keenan and all others will have, or Evie will have that sort of career, but they've certainly got a lot going for them. And the fact that they do look so self-assured, I mean, I did them a bit of a disservice really, because obviously when Keenan came on, there was still quite a bit of time to go, because it was 9 minutes. And as you say, it only took the one goal. As the late great Brian Clough used to say, only takes a second to score a goal. So and it could have changed the whole complexion. So again, I think obviously they kind of know their place, but they'll let Macca and Keenan will let Macca and Lloydie do their things. But as I say, he just looked, they all looked, like they should have been there. They didn't look out of place at all, which was great. And Josh coming on as well, particularly as you said at Birmingham, sort of that full house baying for blood. I mean, they were all, the crowd were sort of going nuts, weren't they? They lost it, by about minute 75 with sort of what they saw as dodgy decisions and what have you. So that was a really intense atmosphere. You're taking a throw there. It's a bit like the old chicken run at West Ham. You're getting pelters from people about 5 feet away. So again, just really, 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 really impressive and just really fantastic to see them to do so well. And hopefully, as I say, they'll go on to have play more minutes this season and then go to have sort of longer careers. But as we said again, there's so many young talents coming out of Sparrows Lane. I guess the issue is, can you accommodate them all?
And that's what Nathan said, isn't it? That's going to be the challenge, is that because we were sort of moored in League One, you could sort of give Lee Burner a TC time out there that at this level, especially as the budgets kind of go up, I think with some of the new investment coming in and everything else, that you're just not going to be able to do, right? If you bring, for a player to earn a spot, it's going to be really, really tricky. And Alan Mwamba, I think, has a really good chance, mainly because he is literally a Nathan Jones perfect central midfield player, right? He does exactly as athletic as anything, right? That's where Karoy works for him. But, you look at someone like a Kai Ensland, who's basically 2-footed, right? He can play either side. He's basically...
I forgot about Kai. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
but the question is does he have the pace necessary to maybe play fullback at that level? And then the question, if you're playing centre back, does being ambidextrous actually particularly helpful? I don't know if it is. So is that sort of... It's going to be difficult, I think, for some of them. And but I think it's a really exciting thing that we're going to have players that are going to really have to fight for it. And actually, if you do make it through and you do get ahead of some of these guys, the other thing at the end of the day is how much you can sell some of these players for. And so you're going to have more Lookman style sales than you are Conference style sales, and that's the...
Well, it's a great headache for Nathan to have. It's this embarrassment of riches, isn't it? As you say, that brings negatives with it in terms of keeping everybody happy. And there will always be the sort of...
That's why he's paid the big bucks, isn't it? That's why he's paid it.
Well, exactly right. So, of course, you can probably guarantee that, they probably won't all have long careers at Charlton. They'll be playing for other teams and whatever, but that's just the way it goes. And if we can get good value out of them, I mean, 20 years ago, of course, you were saying, well, I'd like my academy player to have a good 10-year career with my club. But of course, now that things are more nuanced now in terms of the way that the industry has changed, and the fact that actually, you can get good value for young players, and you shouldn't shy away from that. If someone comes calling, 10 million for say Miles or whoever already, then you're at least going to have to pause and think, well, actually, for the long-term development of the club and the team, is that going to be? We at least need to consider that.
I said it on here. I said it on here before, and I still stand by it. To teams that get promoted, you usually have to either have owners with stupid... We do have owners with silly money, but it's the sort of thing where it's like, how are you going to invest it? What are you going to do? Either go on a massive spending spree, or you sell basically one youngster or a player that you bought for next to nothing for stupid amounts of cash, right? So you look at it, you can go, there's a couple of ways that could be, because it doesn't just have to be... for me, I think the main sellable asset will be in Bick, an English striker at that size with that finishing ability. That's the obvious one, I think. I don't know what rock Stephen Avery hid him under, but goodness me, you're mutable. You're on the mute. Yeah. He's muted. Oh, no, he's muted again.
Oh, sorry,
There you go.
I was going to say the secret's out, isn't it? With Mika, basically.
Oh, massively,
You know,
massively.
we can't keep him under that rock any longer.
I mean,
Sadly,
the main thing with him is I think he'll get a pre-season next year to prove himself. I think Nathan Jones loves you don't bring him on a League One playoff final unless you're pretty secure in your belief in him. I think even Mika, when he came on, was a bit shocked. He was playing at Wembley. I think he was kind of going, "What?"
But he was another one. I mean, when he came on, it was at Cambridge. He made his debut, I think, if I remember right. Cambridge away.
Look good.
And again, yeah, exactly. Again, it was this young kid, barely 18, who's come on. And he just looks.
He's massive. He's absolutely massive.
He is, but I mean, he just looked, assured, and it wasn't too big for him. Okay, sorry again, I'm probably piss off Cambridge fans, but it was only Cambridge, but who of course went on to get relegated. But the fact is that
on Charlton Live, they take the mick out of Burton. On this podcast, we take the mick out of Cambridge, even though they beat.
Exactly, yeah. But again, I mean, I think again, someone who looked, you thought,
there are cows outside the away end. There's cows outside the away end. Well, that's all I need to say about this. That's all. That's the only argument I need.
Yes, well, as I say, we'll try and get sponsored from the Cambridge Tourist Board, but no, I think, but I mean, obviously, I heard, you would have heard, Doc and others who saw Mika at Sparrows Lane were like, "Who is this? Who is this?" And when you've got experienced pros saying, "Oh, there's something about this kid," know that they've seen it all, seen it and done it. It's like, "Oh, this kid's got something about him," as he's gone to prove. I mean, as I say, he's just tearing up, isn't he? In
absolutely lovely bloke as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, very articulate. I mean, as I say, you see some of these young kids have a microphone stuck in front of them, and they give it the old corporate stuff, the corporate guff, game of two halves, and love it here and all the rest of it. But Mika always is really articulate. He sounds like he's got, he can think for himself. And at that age, I guess that whole presence about him. He's not just skillful; he's just an all-round, rounded guy. And it's like, yeah, this kid's going to go absolutely miles.
Is the sort of kid,
no pun intended.
There's the sort of kid as well that you if you're an England fan, you sit there and you're a little bit relieved actually that they've done that they've put him in a development squad, because it gives them a pathway. Because if I was the head of and I'm not sure and Bick is a last name, I'm not 100% sure where some of his family is from, originally. But if I was, it sounds, if it's Nigerian or Ghanaian or whatever it is,
I was going to say Ghanaian, possibly.
It might be Ghanaian, but if you're the, let's say it is, and I don't know if it is, but if you're the Ghanaian FA, right, you'd be doing what Jamaica have done with Tyrese Campbell, right? You go very, very quickly and just go, yeah, you want to play for us? What Sierra Leone have done with Daniel Kane, right? And I think Mbik he's got the talent to kind of be whoever he wants to be, and that is a really scary thing, because he's going to get his education from Stephen Avery and Nathan Jones, which isn't not a bad two, is it, to learn from?
Not at all. No.
Let's just have a really quick look ahead, because it's going to be Christmas. Now we're going. I think we're doing some sort of Chronicles thing on Christmas Eve. Emma was telling me about. But I'm probably not going to do a specific podcast for Norwich, just because I was having some issues with some of the Norwich podcasts. I'm trying to get them on, so this is going to be a slightly extended episode. But let's just spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes chatting about that Norwich game on Boxing Day. I will be there. I know you won't. But I look at that sort of game, and it's somewhere where, if you told me we go there and lose 3-0, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me we go there and win 1-0 a la Sheffield United away, I wouldn't be shocked either. Obviously, we follow that game up with a visit to our favourite hunting ground. One of the great grounds for any Charlton player ever, where Scott Fraser turns into Messi for 3 minutes.
Whatever my ticket says, whatever my ticket says, no standing in these seats. I'll be standing. But anyway, I don't just carry on.
This is where we lose to Pompey 3-0 now. I'm sort of taking the Mickey.
God, yeah.
But God, never live that down. But it's one of the. How can you forget Mbik, Stuart? By the way, in the comments saying forgotten Mbik. How can you do that? Come on, no, but it's one of those, isn't it? A kind of like you look at that Norwich game, and I know Preston last minute equaliser, all the rest of it. They're not exactly free scoring Norwich. They did beat Southampton a couple of weeks ago at home, which obviously we weren't able to do.
They've got defensive issues. Put it that way.
They do, and those strikers. I know they've got the Makoma now, I think, who is scoring, but Josh Jordan has not the same. I think. that's that's a West Ham signing if there ever was one, in January. But I think Stuart actually mentioned this, and we should go to it. He said, "Will Callum be selected for the USA in the World Cup?" Well, Patrick Adjumang, I think, is quite often picked for the USA. So if you're Callum, you can outscore him. I think he's got 4 goals now. Is it Adjumang? You might have a shot actually at saying I should be selected. It's very funny that he plays for the USA though, Callum, because he's definitely from.
He's
definitely a British boy. His dad's
but I mean, actually, Callum, I don't know if you probably follow Talk Norwich City.
Yeah, TNC.
They do watch-alongs, yeah, and they did a watch-along of the Preston game yesterday. I only watched the end of it. I thought I'd just watch their reaction to the goals, and they were saying that we've not had a shot. Well, there goes Makama scoring a goal. So that tells that's quite a positive thing, actually. That firstly, that it took them 85 minutes to get a shot on goal. Yeah, and then it took them till I think the 96th minute when they conceded a really soft goal. Actually, I mean, Will Keane said it was, I could have probably leapt up and got that. So that was really good. I mean, it really deflated them. I mean, I think Philippe Clement's done a really good job. They were on the floor. Yeah. I thought they were going down. I might even say on the Chronicles, crappy takes, saying they're down already, and they clearly aren't. But all the while they can't get out of their own way, and they can't get the 3 points. I mean, I know they have one, haven't they?
They're still 9 points back of us. We have a better goal difference.
Yeah, that's the point. Well. You see, so yeah, exactly. So I mean, if we can go there and get a point, then I'll be more than happy. Basically, it stops them obviously getting 3. If we can, I mean, I wouldn't put it past us to actually scrape a win, actually, or even win going away sort of thing. So, but as you say, we need to respect them.
I mean, Reece Burke is massively, if he's fit, is massively important for a game like this. I remember going to Bramall Lane; he's the best player on the pitch, and I think we've missed him actually sometimes in away games where when he's played, we've looked secure, and when he hasn't played, we've looked pretty open. I think it's that pressure sometimes of being away from home. You need the calm head. To sort of help you sort of deal with that. I think that I don't think there's any surprises. Some of the best players on the pitch were Burke and Bell at Ipswich, Bell at Ipswich, Burke at Sheffield United. That was the first time when Luton fan says, when he's fit, he's a Ferrari. That was the first time I watched him. I watched him at Bramall and went, oh my God, who is this centre back and what is he doing at Charlton? Lo and behold, gets himself injured 6 weeks later. I'm like, that's why he's here.
There you go. Charlton. But I mean, that crowd will turn. That crowd will turn quite quickly. The Barclay will be baying for their own blood if dare I say, we score first.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same. It could have been the same at QPR, as we know. They were turning. They were about to turn, weren't they? Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But they really are pretty fragile, I think, as a fan base and as a team at the moment. They've obviously had a couple of half decent results since Clement came in, but against Preston, that really was a bit of a gut punch. I think Chris Reeve actually said on the watch along it was a gut punch. I think he used that phrase, and they were absolutely gutted. And Jack were absolutely gutted. There was silence for about 30 seconds. When they had their heads in their hands collectively after that Will Keane equaliser went in. So we need to try and take advantage. I mean, they'll obviously come at us, but they're probably in a false position, but they're not. They're relying on the karma, I think, at the moment.
I think my worry would be if when I look at the bottom of that table, I still don't think that we're relegation fodder anyway. No, I don't think an Nathan Jones team really ever is. But I look at. The only time at Luton he was ever really challenging with the drop was when he joined them and they were sat in 21st anyway, 22nd, and he dragged them out of it. So I think that there's that bit. But you look at it, you go, Norwich are probably in a false position, Sheffield United are probably in a false position, and then probably Swansea ultimately are. I know Okonkwo dropped one in his own goal, which drove me mad because, of course, he makes a worldie against us and then drops it in his own net against the team around us because that's thanks Wrexham, as always. God, I want to beat them at home so badly. I can't even explain to you. I will be completely insufferable if we do so. But it was one of those, isn't it? Of I think there's probably 3 or 4 around us who probably shouldn't be there, and then there are teams you kind of look up at it and you go, Stoke are struggling a bit now. I know that they beat us comfortably, but all things considered, they're in a bit of a struggle at the moment. I think West Brom. Birmingham's away form's dreadful. The one thing I sent this to you this morning, which I don't think people realise, we're basically at the halfway point after this next game. If we win our game in hand, we would go above both Wrexham and Birmingham. So it's the sort of thing.
It's so tight. It's so. I mean, I've got to say, talking about.
But I'd be happy if you'd offered me that back in August. at this point. I've been absolutely delighted.
But I've got to laugh at the Birmingham fans. They're so entitled, aren't they? If you can think where they've come from. And poor Chris Davis getting it. I mean, he's not the most sympathetic of figures, I guess. But it's just still. I mean, it's
amazing
just
what happens when you can't massively outspend the rest of the division, right? Amazing what happens.
Funny that, isn't it?
Ordinary
exactly right.
Yeah.
Levels the playing field, doesn't it? Exactly. So,
and also, I mean, again, it's just one of those weird things of somehow they've entered the season with 2 goalkeepers that aren't good enough. It's that sort of. They'll fix that in January, though. That's my thing. They'll go and fix that. I don't have too much doubt. Look at QPR. Probably need to fix some. I know Ben Hamer has played well for them actually, but you probably they probably need to fix the goalkeeping department. There's a few of them that probably do. Yeah. But that's why I say when people sometimes get really uncomfortable with the fact that Kaminsky is our highest paid player, I go, that's why, right? Because you had someone who was championship proven available. So you go, actually, if that money's within reason, it's worth doing. It's the sort of contract though that the stats still say he's above average goalkeeper in the championship anyway. But I don't think he's as bad again as people like to make out.
Well, I mean, I think I probably might have said it on the Chronicles. I've been of the school of thought that says, well, yeah, he's a great shot stopper, but isn't there more to championship keeper, coming for crosses, distribution, and whatever. But the fact is, he's so good at shot stopping. I mean, he is elite in terms of his shot stopping. So I think I can kind of forgive him for the other facets of his game, which
I mean, both. I know Luton had a dreadful season last season defensively, but part of that was they didn't have a fit centre back for about 2/3 of it, so that makes it difficult for you. And they've kept most of those centre backs outside of Burke and Bell now, and look where they are in League One. They look a complete and utter disaster defensively. But it's one of those things where I always sort of look at sort of bits where have you got it right, where have you got it wrong. The left wing back for us was the big error. Right, but you could also say Josh Edwards' injury was a contact injury, not a muscular injury. Maybe you don't sort of see it.
He's a bit of a freak, actually, to be honest with you, at the time. So
it's just that he's going to stick his foot into those sorts of tackles, and that's great because it makes him the player that he is. I think that maybe if we sort of take this towards its conclusion, but it would feel wrong to do a Charlton podcast today without reflecting. I think on 2 things. I think we'll start with the non-football bit, which is obviously the Charlton community has suffered a massive loss. Obviously with the loss of Norman Barker. I had a few moments on my pod after Middlesbrough, chatting through some of my thoughts. Again, it's a great time to reflect. Fair play to Oxford United fans once they sort of realised what it was for. I thought they were exceptional. I think fair play to them as well. The club, I think, left some flowers at the memorial. I thought that was very classy. So fair play to them. Good football club, Oxford. Hopefully they move out of the car park at some. They're moving out of the car park soon, so that will be good for them. That'd be nice for me as well because there's bird crap all over the away end. So getting out of that would be great. So I have to sit in that again. But it's a great. It's a good football club and fair play to them. And obviously, once again, I send my wishes to Norm. This year, obviously, I've lost a very close friend, Charlton friend Glenn, and we miss him all the time. Not being able to go to the playoff final with him, it did feel like there was someone missing. And obviously I got to see his wife Susan and his grandson Dylan on Saturday, and that was very nice.
I didn't actually realise, because also I met Susan and Dylan. I didn't realise that was actually Glenn's wife. So
yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, that was. But also fair play to Blues fans as well. Callum, because obviously they lost their own fan. They obviously had a tribute to him at the game, and then obviously they clapped for Norm as well, which I think was classy for them.
And I think just as the last sort of thing on that before we finish with one more football related topic just for a couple of minutes is send my condolences to the Ipswich fan who sadly took his own life. Ipswich paid tribute to him last night. Again, I know this from my own stats. Almost everybody that listens to this podcast is a man. If you're a female listening to this, you're awesome. But it is mostly men. As always with any of these things, if you're struggling, please do reach out. You've got a second community at the Valley. We're all it's a tough thing, for anyone that's been through those issues. I know I have myself, so it's just it's one of those things of please talk, please do reach out to people, and send my condolences to him. No one should. It's a horrible thing. And I know a lot of men feel pretty isolated, so I think it's important to bring that up as well.
Amen to that. Callum, also just to mention, of course, you would have seen a couple of years ago the advert that their rivals did at Norwich. It was really powerful, really powerful. Yeah, absolutely. And the way that was done was actually incredible. So, but yeah, absolutely. We all, both of us will obviously, be happy to reach out to anyone that's struggling.
I'll chat formations with you. Send me a message. We'll have a conversation about formations or left backs or whatever it is. But please do.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you need some, if you need that support, please do reach out. And I know the club have some stuff with Mind as well. So please do. But finally, it's so important, and it's difficult for me because I can't get to all their games in the same way that I do for the men's. But I think it's important that we reflect on what's been an incredible year for the women's side as well.
Absolutely.
Unbeaten in the league. They've only lost to WSL sides.
Brilliant.
The loss to West Ham probably shows West Ham are really struggling with WSL. It shows probably part of the reason investment's going to have to come in. Gabrielle Brenner's a big women's football fan. His daughter plays college level. It's one of those sort of it's one of those things where there's going to be a big expense if they do go up. It would be wonderful to get the WSL at the Valley. Hopefully crowds can increase, and I know that Karen's doing an exceptional job as a coach. I think the owners did the right thing, basically let her sort of rip the squad apart and rebuild it into the way that she wanted it, but wanted a big massive shout out to them. What an incredible achievement. So fair play to them. Hopefully they'll be playing in the WSL next year. But
I agree with all of that. Those sentiments, Callum. I mean, obviously, it would be great to think that they will start getting some really good crowds. I think the crowds are averaging about 1,000, and they make a lot of noise when I'm there. But it's difficult because I go on a Saturday, and sometimes going on a Sunday, I'd love to do it, but I can't always manage it. I've got domestic issues, shall we say? So as I say, it's just not possible. As I say, I'd love to do it, and it's easy for me to get to the Valley as well. But I just, as I say, I hope that they deserve to get. Well, they deserve to play in front of the packed Valley every week, of course. That may not happen realistically, but it would be lovely to think that that they'll firstly get promoted. They deserve it. I mean, Karen's done a fantastic job.
Yeah,
she deserves all the plaudits from everywhere and from everyone. But hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll get there. I think it's not before time. I think you've got the 2 going up, haven't you, this season? I think, is that right?
And there's a playoff in third.
Yeah,
so
I mean, for so long it was just the one, wasn't it? I mean, it's ludicrous. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous.
They missed out by a point. I think the year Palace went up, didn't they?
I mean, so thankfully that particular wrong's been righted. Thankfully, so hopefully, fingers crossed that they'll make it. They'll get through, and then next season, hopefully they'll play some with crowds that are sort of commensurate with their talents and their abilities and their achievements, because they, as you say, they've done an incredible job to go unbeaten, certainly in the league in sort of the calendar year. Phenomenal. So long may that continue. Big up to them.
And let's end it with our favourite memory from. I know. Technically, we've got 2 more games, and who knows, we might go to Portsmouth and win 8-0. I'm just taking the mickey, Portsmouth fans, before you can do it in an hour and 8 minutes.
No, it's not.
Listen to a Charlton podcast for an hour and 8 minutes. Fair enough. They can troll me. But yeah, no, maybe we do that. But what's been a fantastic year for the football club as a whole. I think a massive stabilisation at board level has helped immensely. 2 managers on long-term contracts who are both excellent. So one of those, I think maybe we'll look back at our favourite moment. It's going to be difficult to beat promotion. I get that, but for me, it is easily that away end at Leyton Orient. That was absolutely spectacular,
brilliant, wasn't it?
Endless S-housery towards that.
Oh, it's brilliant, wasn't it? I mean, to stay behind for 20. I mean, to stay behind for 20 minutes. I always remember Alex Gilbert coming out to warm down, and he was like looking, saying, "What the hell is this?" Unbelievable.
Nathan Jones looking to want to climb up about 7 different rows.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Iconic
it's
coffee
brilliant.
shop over the thing. Like, it was great. That was a great day.
But
Beating
that
my
was,
local side.
yeah, no, it was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, Josh Keeley, Josh doesn't like Fossers, does he? Didn't like Dracula
No, he
or
doesn't
whatever,
doesn't
garlic.
like shot
He doesn't,
stopping
does he?
at
Actually, no.
Luton
He's not.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. But actually, I mean, circling back to obviously your kind of great words about Norm. That was my sort of abiding memory of Norm. Actually, like a lot of us, we didn't necessarily interact with him directly or speak to him, but we shared a smile actually. As well, of all places, I was coming out the loo block and he was going in. But let's move on from that. But no, it was great to sort of share a smile, because I mean that was, we'd obviously both stay behind and sort of sung for 20 minutes, and that was fantastic. I mean, to me, obviously there was still a ways to go in the season, but to me that was almost a seminal moment for us to do that smash and grab like that. I thought was just fantastic. It wasn't quite sort of Man United, Bayern Munich, Barcelona '99 scale, but it was kind of like that. It was like, we were, they played very well. Ethan Galbraith, of course, they had, and their various others, and of course Charlie, and Jack Curry and others. Those great low knees that they had. Was it Donnelly or whatever?
Yeah, Donnelly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had a great team, but so what? The results, what counts? The goals, what counts? And it was a fantastic. So I think for me, last year was certainly, or sorry, last season, or this calendar year rather, that probably that game was the one, and particularly the 20 minutes at the end, singing was fantastic. And I thought we were sort of on our way, and we were on our way to the championship. So great stuff, great memories.
And I think with that is a perfect way to end the podcast. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on. One of my friends outside of doing this. Great guy. Get a chance, come say hello if you see us in the away ends, Millwall.
I might bore you to tears with my repartee, but that'd be great to see you. But by all means, please come up and say hello. It'd be great.
Come say hello. And I wish a Merry Christmas to absolutely all of you. Obviously, I started this podcast this year.
Likewise.
I've got some very exciting news in the new year as well. And please do like and subscribe. I always forget to do this because I hate doing that. I don't like the self-promotion, which is weird because I work in marketing. but when I'm doing it myself. But yeah, I've got some good news in the new year I can't talk about just yet. I'm not trying to be whatever. Genuinely, I'm not allowed to talk about it. But yeah, so thank you all so much. I want to wish Merry Christmas to you, Paul, to your family. Wishing you all the best over the next couple of weeks. Don't drink too much.
Same to you, Callum. Yeah, well, I can't guarantee that won't happen, but yeah.
And to wish obviously everybody that's listening, thank you so much for joining us, whether you're listening on the pod or whether you're watching on the video. Some coming on live as well. And we will see you all. Well, I'll see you after Norwich. Let's be honest. I'll say I won't do a review. I absolutely will do a review pod. So we'll do Merry Christmas for now. Eat lots of turkey. Be very, very happy. And we will see you all very, very soon. All the best.
Merry Christmas all.
Good evening, everybody. Good night.